Hello friends, Jennifer Pearson here, Thistle Gypsy, and I am returning to a reading that I did that was, I don't know if the title of it was Failure as a Rite of Passage, but that's kind of what I have it. I had saved that video on my computer and that's the title of it on my computer, but it would probably be something similar. There were two parts to it. I think the first one was what is my relationship to failure, and then the second one was the failure as a rite of passage. So I wasn't finished with that yet, but a lot of things got put on hold, even though I was also doing a lot of things got put on hold during the month of August, and I'm finally starting to catch up on them. And going back and getting rid of a pile of 3x5 cards that are like, well, I need to do a reading or a video on this or that. So this one was a bit of a stretch for me even. It was like, oh my gosh, where is that? I had to go back and listen to that second video, the failure as a rite of passage, to reconnect with what I was talking about. And hopefully I will remember to put those somewhere in this video, whether in the end cards or linked below in the information box below this video. So the question I wanted to ask, I further wanted to ask, because it was at the end of that video that it was coming, that I pulled the Rite of Passage card, and I'm like, oh God, this is a whole nother, what's this about? So I asked two questions. One is, who am I after this rite of passage? So a rite of passage is supposed to initiate you into a new role or new responsibilities. At least that's kind of my perception of a rite of passage, if we're thinking like anthropologically. So yes, there was that question. That question. These two cards answer that question. And then I further pulled some cards from the Tarot of Transformation about what will my focus be after that change, that rite of passage. So let's do these first. This is from the Shaman's Oracle. This is from the Black Angel cards. So this one first, which these cards are interesting, but they're not, they don't illustrate the meaning of the card particularly. I think that they took those lines to be wings on that person. And this, which I took to be a big behind, the meaning of the, which I'll read here momentarily from the guidebook, takes it to be a bag. Maybe that's the way we ought to think of our behind, as a bag that we're taking with us full of mystical things that we need for our travels. All right, so let me use the Queen as a bookmark in that book. And I'm just going to read to you from the Shaman's Oracle. So this is one of two cards that in this deck are supposed to be pulled out for every reading as kind of what are essential aspects of your journey or with the cards. And I didn't get that heavily into it. For one thing, I did want this card and the companion card to be able to come up as roles that I would play, and here it is. So it says, I am the journeyer. I accompany you on every journey you take in search of answers. So this straight out, I mean, when I got this card, it's like, all right, I'm going down the shamanic path. That's what it's saying. That's where I need to go. Whatever, I don't fully understand what the rite of passage is. I don't think that the rite of passage necessarily has to do with getting shamanic training, but it's certainly saying that on the other side, I'm going to be the journeyer. I'm going to be the one, and certainly this also means journeying for myself, for my own healing. But I think this is saying you're gonna have that role for other people. You're gonna play that role for other people. Which is really helpful to feel like I have a role to play after, because a lot of what is going to be part of that rite of passage is going to be a lot of letting go. So it's nice to feel like I have a role thereafter, a role that, and I'm not sure what all forms it will take, but let me continue reading. I fly into the realm of spirit and encounter the beings who dwell there, the ancestors of all people and the guardians of our inherited wisdom and knowledge. I am the one who conducts you between the worlds through the caves of inspiration, taking you on journeys to find guidance for all that you seek. Often I am silent, and when requested, I can bring my wide knowledge of journeying to bear on your question. I'm just looking. Says the winged being represents the journeyer making his or her ecstatic flight between the worlds, and at the being's side is a bag containing his or her mysterious artifacts, stones, pieces of fur, bones, herbs, and other shamanic objects that help with the crossing from one reality to the other. So all kind of very mystical and dramatic. I actually don't find journeying. I mean, I find it strange. I'm not sure. It's almost like the word mystical is too airy-fairy for the experiences. My experiences feel quite almost confronting. But, definitely doesn't feel like the fairy realm in the sparkly aspect of the fairy realm. All right. So yeah, that to me, that's flat out saying, and some of the cards that came out for the Tarot of Transformation are also flat out saying it's the shamanic path. That's what it is. So the Queen. I like the fact, even just visually, these two cards, it's like you can be laying down, which is, I think of my health issues, and it's like you can be reclined, you can be relaxed, you can be in a non-classic working position. Of course, there's always the oldest profession, which I don't think that this refers to, but anyway, you can be, her hands aren't at a computer. And it's interesting that they're back behind her head, especially considering some of the Tarot of Transformation cards, one of which is the mapping of the mind. So this is not perceived as a working position. And yet she's the queen. And it talks in the book, I'm not going to read, I think, the whole, or even perhaps part of it. Well, maybe the first part. She's, it's on kind of about honoring, recognizing, and encouraging others on their journey, and then expecting a reciprocation that they will honor you on yours. So it's really nice. And it says in this deck has two paths, so it's kind of upright and reversed. And the waking path is being receptive, and the sleeping path is feeling unworthy. And so in the that second video on failure, and now I've put my 3x5 card aside. I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore. The failure as a rite of passage. I had pulled a card from the Soul's Journey deck, and self-esteem came up. And so then when I saw the sleeping path here of unworthy, it was like, oh my goodness, there it is again. Yeah, and you know, when you have a long-term illness, you do. I mean, that's one of the battles you have, is starting to feel unworthy. Or yeah, I'll let it sit there and just be that. So this says the Queen represents one who protects. Your protection is given by honoring all human life. So it's a kind of an existential sort of protection. In this honoring, you too are honored. So there's something in here that essentially says that if you aren't doing the honoring, then you also will not be honored. So it gets a little, it's very reciprocal, and it gets a little bit strange, but like circular. To the Queen, everyone has the right to well-being. By believing that a human life should be valued, not, and just the human life, regardless of what the human life is doing, like the kind of work that it does, you make it your life's mission to encourage people to honor their own and others' spirits. Doing a lot of yawning here. I need to pull cards around what the meaning of the yawning is. Oh, was there something? A while back, I had been looking into the whole ancestor thing. And a lot of the people who had videos about connecting with ancestors were either African or African American. And they didn't do yawning, but they did something. It's like when they were present, this would happen. I can't remember if they were making like strange sounds or whatever. Anyway, so maybe that's what all of my yawning is about. I am tired, but I'm perpetually tired, and I don't perpetually yawn. So it has something to do with videos. It can be that I get into a different state of relaxation when I'm doing videos. I'd have to have my brain hooked up or something. So yeah, connecting with the spirits. And I feel like when in the language of this book, that it means like the namaste, honoring the God presence in another person. But considering the fact that I came up with the journey card, it could well mean spirits as in like power animals or ancestors, and seeing and honoring those in other people, and getting people connected with that. It says, on the waking path, you are able to receive everyone as you can see beyond the physical presence and into the heart and spirit of many. With queen qualities, you tend toward philosophy and grapple with ways of sustaining life. Well, that's why I have explored shamanism. I'm trying to figure out how to sustain my own life. You are seen as esoteric or private. You are often known for providing motivation by encouraging people to live life to its fullest. You display an air of deserving all of the attention you receive. And I don't, certainly like in my teaching, that is, it's like there's empowerment there. Certainly loving to empower people. And why a lot of times with my readings, much as I do just like to give people information for themselves, I also like to go into a problem-solving mode to make sure that it doesn't become sort of a morass of information that they have no idea what to do with. You know, that being overwhelmed is not empowering. So let's just put it that way, to try to keep it constructive. So it goes on to talk more about the act of protecting and how important that is to receiving from others. And it's interesting because the unworthy is there. It's like I don't feel like I can protect anyone. You know, I'm having difficulty surviving as it is. Yes, my animals. I have rescued animals. There is that. But I can't say that I felt honored in return for that particularly. I have a recently gotten involved with an animal rescue organization that I'm hoping will help me, and they seem enthusiastic about helping me rehome my shepherd Rufus. But for the most part, I respected. And they have, and sometimes rescue organizations are not nice and they don't respect you. They, you know, they can get really down on you. This is a really understanding group of people who are happy to help, which is what a rescue organization should be. It should not be an organization of judgment. So on occasion, you know, but I've gotten disrespect as well as respect for going down that path. Yeah. So that's it. So it creates some questions in my mind about what my role as a protector is. And there's somewhere here where it talks more about the unworthy thing. And they talk about some smothering here, some negative aspects of smothering or protecting to the extent that something can't grow, which I think is true of my dogs right now. Overall, not. I totally understand socialization, but I don't have the energy to do it. That's part of the reason I'm seeking a home for Rufus is he really needs that, and I recognize that I'm not able to do it to the extent that he needs it. And so I'm just extremely grateful to have found this group that will find somebody who can do that and help him along his own path. So there it is. When you, well, it talks about visibility and invisibility. But here it says, when you feel like you long for more visibility. I think I tend to have need more visibility and not realize it. But I'm somebody like live under a rock and peer out from under it kind of a person. And so it was a challenge to become a teacher for me, to be that stand-up person. But once I did, it was fine, and I got over it, and was perfectly happy in that role. When you feel a sense of longing to be seen as a queen, you might also be feeling a sense of unworthiness. So that's a paradox to me. Is there a need to be seen or your work validated? Perhaps. I wouldn't say, here it says you have helped others over and over again. I wouldn't say that. I think I need to learn that role. Yeah, well, I'll just read this. It looks like a last paragraph. Being honored and respected is earned through your honesty and true honoring of the spirits of others. Also, having your heart exposed can be frightful to you as queen, but it may be necessary in order for you to receive love. Continuing in your queen powers with a purpose and mission beyond the self will bring you life's treasures. So interesting. And I'm glad I picked that deck to pull from, because to me this is certainly an empowering message, an empowering card for me as I go through this, to see something on the other side of what I'm expecting will be an unpleasant rite of passage. So these two things, in addition to the cards that I'm about to show from the Tarot of Transformation, give me kind of make the rite of passage that I expect is coming less deflating, and gives it more of a sense of purpose or mission to get to the other side of it, instead of sort of living in that rite of passage. It's like living in the rite of passage is not going to be, that phase is not going to be fun. So it's really useful for me, both emotionally and intellectually, to see the other side, to start sort of working on this other side that I'm headed to. So it's like having one foot in the walking the rite of passage, and the other starting to plan for this, to see the other side. The light at the end of the tunnel. I needed the light. So this is giving me the light at the end of the tunnel. And then I have a rainbow bridge. So all of the cards, I pulled 3 cards from the Tarot of Transformation, which may have been overkill in the end, because they were all swords cards. They were all swords cards. And this one is probably the main one anyway. So in this deck, it says that this is supposed to be the mental realm, but this goes into some pretty spiritual stuff, or the mental in the service of the spiritual. So it says the rainbow bridge. I'll bring it up here for you so you can see that it's a rainbow, and you've got the person here with something flying, and then you have a spirit person here. Yeah. So if anybody reads the my connections videos, exploring connections, some of this will ring bells. And this might go up before I post my most recent chat about those kinds of experiences. So in any case, with the number 7, we make a leap. We move beyond the earth principle where all the earlier numbers are related to biological forms, to the heaven principle, which is the more transcendent source. 7 is also the number of the Sabbath, which is how the heaven principle interacts with the weekly calendar. The 7th day is to be a day of rest, a day off from our usual routines. It is a time to be still and settle into contact with a deeper dimension. So these are answering the question, and I somehow lost the card, of what is going to be my focus after the passage. Here they are. Yeah, what will the focus, kind of what will the focus of my life be after this rite of passage? So this is like, who am I? And this is, what am I going to be preoccupied with? What is my focus going to be? We live in a culture that has abandoned the Sabbath. Those for whom it is not just another work day may use it for recreation, but rarely is it dedicated to the real recreation that comes from replenishing our soul. So to me, this is kind of work on myself for the most part, but I think it gets into work on others too. So it says the invitation of this card is to step out of ordinary mind into higher consciousness and let the blessings of heaven rain down on you. The rainbow bridge is whatever serves as a gateway or bridge to this state of consciousness. It may involve a traditional worship service or spiritual practice. It may mean showering in color and sound, in mystical poetry, music, or beauty. It may involve psychoactive substances or a guided shamanic journey to the upper world. So there it is, straight out. It may come unexpectedly in a brush with death. Hopefully not. But, and I have no interest in psychoactive substances. In fact, even the beating of a drum to me, which is normally considered, puts you into a state of mind for a shamanic journey, to me it's distracting. And maybe without having it, I don't go as deeply into a journey as people who do use that method. But I need to be like completely still and just go. The last shamanic treatment I had by a practitioner, she had me do a breathing exercise. The breathe in for 8, hold for 8, breathe out for 8, and then pause and then start again. And boy, that got me in. That got me in pretty deep and pretty quickly. So when this card shows up in a reading, it's time for a little bit of heaven. You are most likely depleted, yes, and could profit from fresh inspiration. If inspiration is breathing things in, yeah. It is a good time to take a Sabbath, whether that's a day or a week or a year. It only takes a moment to call the company of heaven into your life. As recognized by many religious traditions, when the light beings of the spirit realm are called, they gladly come, bringing with them energy that revitalizes and restores. Take time to follow your rainbow bridge. So there's that. To me, that's calling me to do more of that and to take the time I need to heal. And then I have the server of swords, so again, serving others, and the healer of swords, which of course is healing others. So I'll read the first part of this one. The server of swords wields, so this would be the page normally, and the healer is the queen. So it's like, the theme is here. It's all go down the shamanic path. This could also be tarot card readings. Um, it's there. This is the next stage, is to focus on this stuff. But it's not saying now. It's who I will be after the rite of passage. So I can dabble, continue to tiptoe down these paths. But it's not like I'm going to be setting up shop to be doing anything for anybody else anytime soon in this regard, because I still need to learn it. I still need to do my own healing. I feel like there's a big reason this came up first. There's a lot I need to do to feel decent. And even understand what the whole shamanic journey is about, and to take it more seriously. And so I need to reserve my energy for the rite of passage. The rite of passage, which again, I don't feel like is shamanic training. The rite of passage to me is the everyday world stuff that I have to face, the everyday world stuff that has to happen to make space for this. So, the server of swords wields the sword in the service of truth. He uses discriminating awareness to see what is false and combines this with good communication skills to confront others on their stuff, their pretenses and personal baggage. To me, that sounds more like giving tarot readings. To me, that sounds like giving tarot readings, providing people with information about their stuff. That's what we do a lot, right? While the sword is often used as a means of self-protection, here it is used to free others from their illusions. The server of swords is a warrior, not an aggressive warrior, but a spiritual one. The server is a warrior because he is willing to do battle rather than stay comfortable or safe. He is willing to put himself out for the sake of a larger cause. Although we are using the masculine pronoun in keeping with the male image on the card, we can all embody this energy. This card represents the art of skillful confrontation. It is about helping others see where they are not free. Starting with an agenda of changing others is not necessarily consonant with this. The server seeks only that others see the truth more clearly. Whether or not they want to change is up to them. Again, this just sounds to me a lot like doing card readings. Okay. Okay. It does go on to talk quite a bit about confront the possible need to confront others, which may also be something that I need to me, that's part of the rite of passage, actually, is not confronting specific others, but structures in society, actually. Bureaucracy, structures in society. But I think, again, that to me this was just saying, using the cards. So then we go on to the Queen. And so this is at the top of this, it says cutting away illusions. So, getting at the truth, cutting away illusions, often our fond illusions. And for this, it's mapping the mind. And I would have said maybe instead of mapping the mind, more mapping the soul. Uh, but who knows how this will actually manifest. Um, and I do, with the like power animals, ancestors, past lives. So when this came up, mapping the mind, that made a lot of sense. And I've been watching Arth Haragar. His the videos by him. It's Arith is his first name, and his last name is Harger. He's actually Portuguese, but he has Norse ancestry, and he has, and his channel is, from what I can see, um, anywhere from 99 to 100% exploring Old Norse beliefs. And this is something I happened upon his videos when I was looking up stuff on shamanism, because he steps a bit into talking about shamanism, and like the perspective of the Sami, and how the Sami are beliefs are both different and similar to the Old Norse beliefs. So he talks a little bit about that. And so that was my entry into his channel. But I also read or listened to his videos about the Norse concept, the Old Norse concept of the soul and its various parts, which was really interesting and does intersect to some degree with uh, shamanism. It helped me kind of understand the worldview of shamanism a little better. Um, and what else was he? Uh, I've lost it. I was going to make some other connection with some of the things he talks about, but it's gone now. And then he goes, so he talks about the different parts, and then he goes into, he has separate videos on some of those parts. And the sense is that he's learning this, but that he's researching it in a relatively intellectual way, and he does a lot of distinguishing. I think it was animism. So he does come across as an advocate of an animistic worldview, and he likes to advocate for an animistic worldview. So somebody that others might want to look up, whether you're like I have no particular interest in like following an Old Norse path or any particular path, to be honest. And but I did find some of the concepts he was referring to very revealing and relevant to some of my own experiences, actually, when it came to the Hamingia. And and understanding some connections. So really, anybody who has an interest in this sort of stuff, I would say, just check out his channel, go to his videos on his channel and just scan them and see if there's anything that you that resonates with you, and see if you find him interesting. So the mapping of the mind, I see kind of more as that this kind of mapping of the other worlds of the mind, kind of a thing, or the spirit connections within the mind, trying to understand those better for myself, and potentially helping other people understand how these all play into their own lives. So, in the Suit of Swords, healing is working with the mind in such a way that you break free of its restrictive patterns. And so when you're reading shamanism, at least I'm reading Michael Harner's The Way of the Shaman, he talks about the ordinary state of consciousness and the shamanic state of consciousness. So I see like this restrictive patterns um, can be certainly our thinking patterns or assumptions, all of those things that are very everyday, but it can also be the ordinary state of consciousness as being a restrictive, um, yeah, just as being a restrictive pattern or assumption that could also be something that one is breaking free of. We talk about this in the Ten of Swords, which is called Leaving the Story, and also in the Ten of Wands, which is called No Self. Part of what allows us to leave our story and sense of personal self is understanding how these are constructed and what keeps them in place. The healer is one who has this knowledge. The knowledge comes from mapping your mind, seeing its terrain. This can only be done by making full authentic contact with your experience. You can't map your mind if you're scooting away from it. In mapping your mind, you both see its contents and the way it works. You see the landmines of aversion and attachment. You also see the way out. The healer understands how awareness brings change, as well as how to use methods like chanting and visualization, which use sound and visual patterns to affect consciousness. So I see that more as like, an athlete that envisions themselves winning. So I don't see what they're talking about here as being like shamanic visions. Methods from psychology can also be employed to help you see how beliefs are only beliefs and feelings are only feelings. So, and I could see if I had the time and energy taking, I've had classes in psychology. I've had basic psychology classes in college. So what I was thinking is, but nothing that has to do with clinical psychology, nothing that has to do with that. And so if, there's free online college type courses, and if I were ever in a position where I felt that I had the wherewithal, the level of concentration and time, then maybe that would be a route that I could go. And a lot of them are not, you can be just a bystander, essentially you're sitting in. Usually when it's free, you're just sitting in. So I could definitely get online and see if I can find, and I can't even remember the name of, there are 2 or 3 very well-known universities that offer online classes to just about anything. What do they used to call them? Ah, it's not in there. But these massive classes, where there are hundreds of people all over the world, which now we're accustomed to that, but was a really new, big, groundbreaking thing. And I participated in some in regards to poetry, I think only, that were really fun. But if you're really fully participating, they can be pretty demanding. In the picture, a woman sits in the lotus posture meditating. This allows her to open up to higher frequencies. Yeah, it's just talking about what's in the picture. This card comes as an invitation to get to know the patterns in your mind and to learn new ways to work with them. There are many ways you can do this. You can use the tools offered by psychology and meditation to get to know not just the contents, but the activities of your mind. Since there is nothing like a long silent meditation retreat, to really see the workings of your mind, you might consider this. Ultimately, healing the mind is healing into what the Buddhists call big mind, the ground and true nature of mind as vast open space. So I don't see that as, this tarot transformation in general has a very psychological bent to it. It is not, for the most part, I would not call it terribly shamanic in its outlook. When was it? It doesn't certainly disallow that, but it takes a more traditional psychological viewpoint on things. But I see this, it was done in 2002. But when I see this card and think about this card, it fits in well with some roads I have started to go down. And to me, again, maybe even less than mapping the mind, kind of mapping the self, that sort of thing. So there we go. I've managed to ramble for over 45 minutes now about this. And very open to anybody who wants to make some comments. As usual, it can be really helpful and point out some things that I maybe need to look into more. And part of I will say this though, part of the rambling, and so I'm grateful for anybody who actually really comes along for the journey and listens to these long rambles. But part of the reason I'm kind of reading some of this stuff into the record is because I will probably come back to this. I will keep this on my computer, and I will probably be coming back to this to reorient at times and remind myself why I'm going through this rite of passage and what's on the other side, and how I can start to focus on that light at the end of the tunnel to get me through the difficult aspects of the rite of passage, of the journey, the everyday life journey that is going to get a little on the rocky side, both materially, emotionally, mentally, lots of challenges. So, yep, all of this is helpful to not feel like it's like the end slide of a long decline, which without this is what it feels like. And instead is saying, there is a light, and it's something that has value for me, and also is intended to have value for others as well. So, all right, everybody, take care. Once again, huge thanks to those of you who fully come along for the journey. All right, take care. Bye-bye.